Meanwhile, in the Hunters Association, a mad hunter was sitting at a desk in the office. He noticed that the hunters began to clean the portals very quickly. Suddenly, colleagues approached a man named Jake and offered him a drink at a nearby institution. But a man in a red robe said that he still had unfinished business at home, so he was forced to refuse. When the guys left, the scientist took up a computer mouse and opened a map of Korea. Looking at it, he realized that they lacked a scapegoat, so the man decides that they should change the current circumstances. Meanwhile, Dae Sung was standing in front of an enraged dragon. Suddenly flames began to erupt from the mouth of a wild reptile. However, the dark-haired man could not allow the dragon to make his attack, and with the words "one blow is death," he pierced the monster's thicket. From the bloodshed, memories of the old days came flooding back to the guy. While Dae Sung was coming to the senses, Balak was ready to pierce the impudent man with his spear, but the ruler of hell dodges such a ridiculous attack without a break. The guy is already quite tired of this ugly mission, and with a heavy exhalation he decides to finish it quickly, but the angry Balak did not say a word. After that, the giant began to continuously attack the black-haired young man, but the guy easily reflected every attack of the monster, and stretching out the knight in front of him, he decided that it was his turn to attack. The guy released the accumulated energy and continued to fiercely repel attacks, but the toothy ruler of the fortress did not slow down the tempo, from which Dae Sung began to lose ground. "I'll take a sideways look at Balak," the dark-haired guy asked why he was so strong. Suddenly, the monster screamed at all the iron fortress, after which wings formed behind the back of the giant. Balak used the skill of the Brontosaurus cannon, and with the words "one attack, one death," he rushed at the insolent man who invaded his fortress. As a result, the hefty monster was beheaded. Looking back, Dae Sung grinned at the fact that the lizard turned into a dragon. Suddenly, a white liquid began to flow out of the head of the defeated monster, and an unknown creature began to form from it. The ruler of hell saw something like this for the first time. The snow-white creature who appeared asked furiously who dared to disturb the rest of the holy apostles. Scarlet blood continued to drip in front of the shoes of the unknown. The maniac, squeezing out the last drops of blood from his heart, prayed to his lord that the sacrifice would be successful. When suddenly scarlet vines began to climb out of the red puddle and a portal formed in front of the guy in the raincoat. Meanwhile, in the Hunters Association, a mad scientist received a call to his work phone and he officially introduced himself, saying that his name was Jake and he was the director of portal search engines. The maniac told his master that he had successfully carried out his sacrifice with the hearts that he had collected before. Hearing this, the man grinned. The scientist said that he would let the Hunters Association know about it. After that, his subordinate asked when he should finish the sacrifice, to which the man in the red robe said that as soon as there were enough scapegoats, he would finish this case. Several notifications popped up in front of Dae Sung saying that an unknown creature had entered the system, and the system was also able to identify the monster as an excellent celestial, after which it began to glitch. Seeing that the alerts were out of order, the black-haired youngster assumed that Snow White in front of him was incredibly strong. Suddenly, another message appeared in front of the guy, which said that the guy could use his own power since the process of implementing the terrain was completed, after which the question was whether the guy wanted to use his own power? The ruler of hell smiled and noticed that it was damn timely, after which Dae Sung was surrounded by incredible energy. Looking at this, the celestial grinned, because such an insignificant bug decided that it could stop the course of the universe, after which the monster ordered the guy to die. A powerful explosion occurred in the iron tower of Balak. Looking at this, the celestial assumed that there was no dust left from the guy. When suddenly a black-haired boy with his mighty sword flew out of the thick smoke, the next moment, he plunged his blade into the body of a snow-white monster. However, there was a moment of silence on the battlefield. The celestial with scarlet galasmi grinned and asked if the guy really thought he could harm him with this ridiculous attack. However, the ruler of hell did not hope for this. The black-haired man decided to use the last skill of hell, which can only be activated in hell, and the strength of this ability depends on the level of realization. The monster appeared in the boundless, echoing space. Looking around absurdly, a certain glow began to form behind him. This was Dae Sung's ability of Fiery Pond, Eternal Suffering. Gradually disappearing, the celestial could not believe what was happening, so that such an insignificant bug had such an attack. he wanted to report it to the rest of the Celestials, but he was completely swallowed up by a black hole. After that, notifications were displayed in front of the ruler of Hell, which said that the excellent Celestial was destroyed, and therefore the system was restored. And also there was a reminder that the mission will end as soon as the guy takes his place on the throne of the ruler. Walking slowly to the deserved place, the great Khan Dae Sung ran to the golden throne. Touching the base of the ruler's chair, it began to transform, and a moment later a staircase appeared in front of the black-haired man that led straight to the throne. Gradually climbing up it, messages from demons who were imprisoned were displayed in front of the ruler of Hell. They were delighted with such a bright sight. Soon, a notification appeared in front of the guy saying that the Bulwark mission was successfully completed, as a result of which the guy acquired 2 S-class skills, an exchange of territory and a Bulwark Celestial. Also now Han Dae Sung could summon defeated enemies to his shadow army. The monsters bowed to their boss and swore to serve him forever. After hearing this, the guy noticed that the demons were too dirty and asked them to shut up, because they would summon them as soon as they were needed. Sitting on the throne, the black-haired man decides that he just needs to remove all these portals and earn some money. Meanwhile, a first-degree alarm was announced in the Hunters Association, because a level 8 portal was discovered in Gangnam, Dogaktan district. Before announcing an emergency evacuation of residents, it was decided to send an operation group there first. The main leader Park Chong-ho entered the observation room. The man asked if this was the same portal as 5 years ago that destroyed everything around him. And the chairman confirmed his terrible guess. There was definitely a level A portal in front of them. Raised his hand to his chin, the chief executive plunged into thoughts. Without thinking for long, the man demanded to call all hunters and ask for additional help from the World Organization of Hunters. Bowing, the dark-haired man said that everything would be done. Meanwhile, the system decided to show the ruler of Hell his current characteristics. The physical realization of Han Dae Sung reached 48%, and the magical 41%. Also, the guy had a new ability called the Exchange Area. It allowed him to change the places of the real world to the terrain from Hell. At the moment available to him is the Ethio Iron Fortress of Bulwark. Looking at the system notifications, the dark-haired guy noticed that his implementation is still too low, and he decides that he should earn a few more new skills. Standing on an empty platform, the ruler of Hell decides to use the exchange of terrain. This event was recorded on the 124th page of his diary, and it happened 3 years ago. Gradually the Colosseum in front of Han Dae Sung began to change. Meanwhile, in the Hunters Association, all the main leaders gathered at a round table, as well as a number of important people were present online at this conference. Looking around, the chairman made sure that everyone was gathered, and since this is the case, he decides to start a meeting about ways to solve the A-level portal in Gangnam. A law enforcement bus was driving along a busy street in Korea. Hwang Junyan was sitting in it surrounded by a convoy. The man sitting on the chair was thinking who could be the killer. Lee Suga could not be killed so easily. Even for a professional mercenary it would not be easy, and the dark-bearded man realizes that someone powerful must definitely be involved in this case. Also, Hwang Junyan sincerely hopes that everything will be all right with his student. Suddenly, the door of the hospital room opened and a nurse came in with a fresh cart full of food, but the employee notices that the patient did not even touch the last food. The black-haired girl notifies Shinchon that she will remove the 4, since there is no sense from her anyway since the huntress does not feed. Sitting on the hospital bed, the girl clenched her trembling fist. Shinchon did not even listen to what the nurse was saying. She was immersed in her thoughts, and she blamed herself for what happened to her master. Meanwhile, the gathering was in full swing. An old man named Ryu Jones, who is the head of the Fortress clan, said that their huntress Son has been gone for a whole month since she went to investigate. The deputy chief of the Marble clan, Cho Hankyu, who is the brother of the head of the clan named Cho Hano, who ranked 5th in the S-class hunter rating, said that his brother was in Silicon Valley to develop aura weapons, but after learning about the events that are taking place in Korea, he decided to return to his homeland as soon as possible. Upon hearing this, the chairman said that this time too, Lee Changshik, So Dongkal and Baek Haerin would be responsible for the attack. Picking his nose with Dongkal agreed because they have no choice. If they can't stop this threat, then everyone will die. However, the blonde boy did not care much about it. He agreed to take part only because Baek Haerin was going there, who promised him a date. Hearing this, The girl was outraged because they already had a date, and she even treated the guy to meet and bought him dessert. Didn't he remember that? But Lee Changshik was not happy with what happened, because the date should take place alone, and for some reason the girl called them from the donkal, so the hunter cannot count this event as a date. The furious girl claims that if she said it was a date, then it was. Watching the children from Donetsk, I was ashamed that he was familiar with them and said that the guys would then solve their problem themselves, and it would be better for them to give volunteers for this mission among the A-class hunters. The audience decided that this was a great idea, because if a trio of S-class heroes could clear the A-level portal, then it would be a significant event in Korea. After listening to all this, the chief executive Park Chung-ho demanded to find at least 100 A-rank volunteers and 10,000 ethers. From these words, the leaders were alarmed, because 10,000 ethers is the annual stock of the association. It's a lot. Jake was sitting inconspicuously at the table among those present, who was listening attentively to all the plans of the association. Soon an alarm sounded throughout the city, which notified of the danger of the first level, and all residents were advised to take shelter in the bomb shelter of the association. A heavy downpour covered the building under construction. A uniformed man ran up to the two guards in raincoats and handed over the received order, and the assembled squad of hunters were ready to begin the operation. Among the crowd there were those who were not happy with what was happening, because it was too sudden. Some even came here to look at the top hunters. So Donkal, throwing the bat behind his back, said that they should finish this business quickly so that the guys could go on their date. Hearing this, Lee Changshik asked the elder not to come anymore. However, the black-haired man was not going to interfere with this couple. He asked the guys not to fuss and wish each other good luck. After these words, the hunters rushed into the dark portal and a beautiful view opened up in front of them. So Donkal, looking back at his squad, ordered them to check their equipment and disperse around the area. Lee Changshik notified Bakhairan that he was going to scout the nearby area and asked her not to go anywhere. As soon as the guy left, the girl contacted the black-haired man and told him that Hunter Number 1 went to investigate. After listening to this, he was outraged because the guy could personally transmit this information through a radio transmitter. Turning to the rest of the hunters, the guy with the bat notified the others that Lee Changshik had gone to investigate, so he ordered the guys to break the main camp into two lines. After listening to the person responsible for the operation, the hunters began to carry out the order. Meanwhile, Chang-ho stood in the office and prayed to all the gods that his friend would pick up the damn phone and the gods would hear him. The dark-haired man answered him and asked what he wanted from him. Restraining his rage, the guy in the suit politely asked why his friend did not take his phone for so long, because they had an extraordinary situation. However, instead of answering, he heard Han Dae Sung's dialogue with his mother. He asked her not to take so many unnecessary things to their new home. Falling on a computer chair, Chang-ho asked if the guy was moving. Everything was exactly like that. However, the Lord of Hell bothered to ask what happened. At the same time, the brown-haired one said that a level 8 portal had opened in Gangnam, and now the association requires all hunters above level B to go there. The black-haired guy was surprised that such a grandiose event was taking place near his house, but he still did not understand what kind of portal was there that so many people were called there. At the same time, Chang-ho introduced the guy to the fact that 5 years ago it was because of the gaps in this portal that there were gaps in others. 3 S-class hunters were barely able to close it at that time. In response to this, from the handset of the ruler of hell, he could be heard asking his mother not to take anything from the kitchen utensils and promising her to buy everything new. After that, closing his eyes, the guy wonders if he will be raised if he successfully closes this portal. Hearing such an audacious statement, Chang-ho was dumbfounded and did not know what to answer. Meanwhile, a crowd of blood wolves appeared inside the portal. They occupied the second level of danger, and their favorite delicacy was human blood. Hiding behind the stone, Sodonkal said that the monsters were detected for 12 hours, for 3 hours, also for 9 hours. Suddenly, one of the hunters noticed another pack of wolves for 6 hours and transmitted this information through the radio. Looking around, the black-haired man's pupils narrowed because their squad was surrounded by bloodthirsty wolves. Ethers appear if you defeat monsters inside the portal. At the moment there are ethers from Class E to Class S. Humanity was going to collapse due to unequal development, environmental destruction and inadequate use of natural resources. At this time, ethers appeared that had a special energy. thereby they helped humanity to avoid the inevitable destruction. More importantly, if you charge the auras with ether and inject them into the awakened one, then his skills will improve significantly. Just as aura weapons are important for attacking portals, so are ethers important for hunters themselves. So Donkal grabbed a glass bottle and ordered the superior hunter to charge with ether. After hearing the order, the salt troops began to inject themselves with ampoules with unknown contents, after which the strength of their aura increased dramatically, and the guys were ready to take the fight. The bloodthirsty monsters rushed into battle, when suddenly a meteorite flew in front of them, which threw the animals. The hunters recognized Li Changshik as the number one hunter in the silhouette that raced by. The blonde guy was running across the desert land and thinking that he did not want to use this ability. However, they have no other choice, and the next moment he uses the release of the aura skill on a wide spectrum. A colossal amount of aura burst out of the black-robed guy's body. The blood wolves stood motionless and drooled hungrily, when suddenly a white-haired youth rushed in front of them, who successfully attracted their attention. So Donkal asked the girl to cover their rear while Li Changshik attracts monsters to himself. Starting to execute the command, the guys scattered in different directions. Running away from the crowd of monsters, the blonde-haired man told the elder to run straight. Looking back, Li Changshik made sure that the monsters continued to follow him. Looking straight ahead, Hunter number 1 saw in front of him rushing from Donkal, who activated the ether in full. Looking at the loaded comrade, Li Changshik handed him the baton. Suddenly, the black-haired hunter pushed off from the ground and soared into the air in order to use the ability that hits millions of enemies at a time, aura lightning. Striking his mighty bat on the ground, a bright flash covered the nearby area, and the bodies of the blood wolves were soaked with an electric discharge. Beck-Heron activated her fast aura, which covered the friendly troops to strengthen the guys and replenish the reserve of energy spent. The guys were spent with such an amazing effect. At the same time, Li Changshik began to slow down, after which he turned around and rushed back into the inferno. Seeing such a brave action, the hunters were tempted and decided to follow the example of hunter number 1. At the same time, in the ruins of an abandoned city, people were buying small packages with unknown contents. After the guy in the pink jacket received his dose, the man in the suit called the next one from the queue. Suddenly, his partner appeared from around the corner of the concrete wall, and ordered everyone to run away from here as soon as possible. These words could mean only one thing. The uncouth guys ran as fast as they could from the place of the transaction. The black-haired guy with curly hair could not understand how he had come to such a low life. Suddenly, the guys were enveloped in a bright light coming from the headlights of a police car. A voice was heard from the wheelbarrow, who ordered those present to drop their weapons and voluntarily surrender, otherwise the guys would be accused of illegal drug trafficking. A black-haired man holding an ugly blade in his right hand curses everything around. Suddenly the door of the state car opened slightly, and an unknown figure in dark shoes appeared in front of the homeless. The man grinned from what he saw. He did not expect that the entire Red Horse clan would slide so much and become garbage. Those present were worried. They did not expect that someone would be able to recognize them, and they wanted to know who was in front of them. At the same time, Zhang Jinchil in a suit stretched out his hand and invited his former comrades to show the new world. The guys opened their mouths. They could not believe what was happening because there was a living dead man in front of them. Meanwhile, the last bloody wolf was exterminated in the A-level portal. The hunters were not too surprised that they managed to clear the portal of such complexity without casualties on their part, but some did not expect anything else because they had 3 S-class heroes with them. Beck-Heron alternately served the wounded and, having felt the girl's abilities on himself, was simply delighted, because if he had such abilities, he would not have left the portals. However, the girl was not too happy to hear such praise, because she had already told the guy that her skills are very money-guzzling and they definitely need A-class ethers, and if you consider that the Donkal also use such an ether, then they plunge into debt. The black-haired man realized that he felt better without treatment, but he was already gradually starting to develop immunity to her screams. Li Changshik appeared behind the girl's back, who noticed that Beck-Heron was chirping like a bird. Hearing such a thing, the girl's rage was replaced by pure fear. At this time, the rest of the hunters were examining the bodies of the defeated monsters, and one of the guys was very happy when he was able to detect the B-class ether, when suddenly his head shattered into molecules. The terrified hunters rushed to the guy's aid, but it was too late. an angry and hungry boss of the portal was sitting in front of the hunters. There was still a heated atmosphere around the portal in the Dagoktan area, and a defense of military forces was built within a radius of 3 kilometers from the portal, and hunters from each region flocked to prevent surprises. According to the news, it was broadcast that the legendary trio of S-class hunters are now on the offensive in the portal. Last time during the attack of the B-level portal they cleared it in a short time, and the girl asks, is it true? Her colleague, who was in the danger zone, says that everything is exactly like that. Last time the hunters cleared the portal in just 6 hours and 21 minutes, but the current attack has been going on for 10 hours. Just as they were interested, the association set a goal to gather A-level hunters from everywhere and finish this mission. The Hunters Association was closely watching everything that was happening. The chairman decided to find out from a nearby employee when the hunters from the International Hunters Association should arrive, but the girl replies that there has not yet been an official response. The black-haired man notices that now they are in limbo due to the fact that they cannot contact those inside the portal. In response, the woman says that the military forces and their hunters have gathered. Also, Cho Hanil should arrive at the scene of the incident in 8 hours, but for now they can only hope for 3 S-class hunters. The chairman asks to continue attempts to communicate with the International Association, and if anything, the man's voice breaks off at these words. He decides not to even think about such an outcome. He can only believe in modern heroes.